Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and we are back with this same awful drum mix we've been working with, and we're going to add a little bit more low-end beef to your snare using tuning. Okay, so we've got our normal snare drum here. I'll play you our snare drum. Nothing on it. This is our poor recording of a snare drum as it came in. Just looks like a top mic here. And I'm going to show you how we can add some extra low end, some extra beef to your snare drum by tuning it, okay? All right, so here's the snare drum as it stands. Okay, so we'll loop kind of just this first little area here, okay? So we have something to focus in on. Let's turn snap to grid on. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? So we have our loop set here. We'll focus in on this first little area here. Okay, so what we're going to do, same way we did with our kick in our last video, okay? So we're going to duplicate our snare drum, right-click, duplicate track complete, and now we've got this snare 3-track here, okay? So let me solo this up and show you what we're doing. So the first thing we're doing here is we're heading over here on our sidebar. So we're going up, clicking our little eye here, clicking on our track, and then all we're doing is we're transposing our snare drum down 7, okay? So we're going down about a fifth, okay? We want to stay, I experimented going, anywhere between, 0, 7, going all the way down to an octave. I'll show you what an octave sounds like. It's kind of a fun experiment. So all you do is mess with this a little bit, try a third, try a fifth, try an octave if you want. They're all going to give you different sounds on your snare drum, okay? So let me show you what this sounds like without the EQ on it, okay? So here's our snare drum tuned down a fifth. Okay, so without the EQ, we have pretty much just our snare drum tuned down. Now, if we take that and pull that up underneath, we're going to get a lot of weird ringing and a lot of clashing, okay? Because we already have our snare drum that has some ringing going on in it, and then we're tuning it down, so that ringing is tuning down with it, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did when we did this with our kick drum, okay? We're going to isolate the area we want to emphasize, okay? So with our EQ, we are going to emphasize the low-end weight, the low-end beef that we want to add into our snare drum, okay? So let me turn this EQ on, okay? We're doing a very small frequency range here. We're pretty much just going between 100 and 200 here, okay? On an EQ like this, you can use the visualizer. You can see where the fundamental is on your snare drum and pretty much isolate your bands around that, okay? So let me play you what the tuned down snare drum sounds like with this EQ in. And you saw there you could go even further if you want. There's a little bit here at 200 that we probably don't need. So you could go underneath that. You could just isolate the narrowest part of that low end that you want to add, you want to emphasize on your snare drum, okay? So now that we've got our part isolated with our EQ, we can go through, we can pull this down, and we can add it back in to our snare drum, okay? This is going to be a lot more subtle than what we did with our kick drum. It's not going to add a whole bunch of low end. We're just adding a little bit more weight, a little bit more beef to our to our snare drum, okay? So you can hear as I pull it up, it's not going to be way up here. It's probably not going to be sitting even with our snare drum. I'll show you what that sounds like. I'll pull it all the way up here, and then we'll pull it back probably somewhere around here, maybe -10, -9, somewhere in that area, okay? So I'm going to mute my mic here, and we're going to pull up this snare drum, okay? Okay, you can hear when I pull it all the way up, it's pretty much just too much of that 100 hertz area ringing out. The tom roll sounds a little bit weird with it pulled all the way that up, but it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's adding some extra low end weight, some extra beef to our snare drum, okay? I'm liking it. I'm digging it right here in this -12 area. It's pretty subtle, but listen again. It really adds some nice tone to the ghost notes, okay? And I love what it's doing there. That's why we're using this trick, okay? So we're bringing up a little bit on our snare ghosts, and we're adding a little bit of that extra 100 hertz tone to our snare drum, okay? Listen one more time. I'll mute and unmute this mic, or this track inside our snare, okay? Okay, that's all for today. Just a quick tip, same as yesterday, on adding a little bit more beef, a little bit more low-end weight to your snare drum by tuning a copy of it down, okay? And then we're isolating that low-end area and just tucking it up underneath our normal snare drum, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. If you need help mixing your next track, head down to the description, click the link, sumthinsrecording.com, and request a quote for mixing on your next project. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.